Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to go ahead and look at how we can use our functions to return a Boolean value. If you remember, a Boolean value can only be true or false. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of rewrite our code from the last video, but this time we're going to use a function that returns a Boolean value. And the first thing I wanted to do is take this database name and database password. If you remember these two, and we can erase where we call that function to. If you remember these two variables, we were just kind of pretending that these were values that we got from a database. We'll learn how to do that later, but for now just kind of think of these two variables here as things that were given to our script. It's not something that we physically typed in as our example looks here. And also this name and password variable were variables that were also given to us, but by the user input, maybe in a form on a web page. So again, these aren't in real world applications. These wouldn't be variables where we just typed them in. I hope that kind of clears that up. So and this time I pulled these two variables, database name and database pass. I took those outside of the function, and we're also going to learn how to access those variables from inside our function, because if you remember, everything inside a function only has access to variables that are inside of it and any variables we pass to it when we call it through the parameters. So let's go ahead and change the name of this function to, actually first let's erase all of this. And instead of having a function login, we're going to have a function named is correct login. Okay, and we're going to give it the same parameters. We're going to give it a username and a password. So when we call it, we're going to say is correct login, and we're going to give it our name and our password, which is the two variables just above where we called it here. Sorry if that went on your screen. I just typed this line here, is correct login. We're calling the function, and we're giving it the parameters name, which is on line 5, and password, which is on line 6 here, as parameters. And it'll take those parameters and pass it down to our function here. This time we're going to go ahead and say if actually, before we do that, I wanted to show you how we access these two variables, database name and database pass. If you notice, these are outside of our function, and so if we type database name, if we do anything with this variable, PHP is not going to know what we're talking about. PHP is going to think that we're trying to either initialize a new variable or we're just accessing something that's null, that has nothing inside it. So to access variables outside the function, we use the keyword global. Global, and then we type the name of the variable, and then do that again for the other variable. And after this line 19 here, we're going to have access to both of these, because we told PHP we're referring to variables outside of this function that are not local, they're global. So let's go ahead and say if username is equal to db name, let's do something here, else we're going to return false. And if the username does equal whatever name we have in our database, we're going to have another if statement. If password equals dbpass, we're going to do something else, return false. And if the password does equal the database password, we're going to return true, because those two cases, the username and the password, are true. And there is a much better way to write this, but let's just kind of stick with this right now. This will work just fine for us. And from there, what we can do is when we call, and remember, when we call this function, it's going to return a Boolean, because we return true and we return false, and those are Boolean values. And so what we could do is if, and put all this the entire function here with the parameters inside of uh, an if parameter. So this highlighted area is all inside of our if statement here, our condition for our if statement. And if this is true, let's echo welcome back. Welcome back name. Else echo wrong credentials. Okay, so let's save this and kind of see what's going on. Okay, it says wrong credentials because we put George Wyatt as our name and 125 as our password, but our variables here was Michael Jones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's put that instead here. And again, these two variables would be variables which were inputted by a user on a form. So let's say he inputted the correct variables, which were Michael Jones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Save that. And it still says wrong credentials here. Let's see. Password. I don't think this should make a difference, but let's move this up here. Okay, welcome back, Michael Jones. I guess I had my variables underneath where I called the function from, and that was kind of messing us up. So welcome back, Michael Jones, because this function here returned true is correct login. We took the variables from outside the function with the global keyword, and then we compared everything. And if username was equal to database name, if password was equal to database password, we returned true. And so if we go back up to where we called this function, we could have just replaced this entire highlighted area with the keyword true after that point, and it would mean the exact same thing because it returned true, otherwise it returned false. And just one last thing, I mentioned earlier there'd be a much better way to write this, so let's see that now. What we could have done is actually taken all of this out here, and we could use a double ampersand as you can kind of think of that as an and. It's called an and conditional operator, and all that means is whatever's on either side of this ampersand has to be true for this if statement to happen. So if password equals dbpass, and in plain English this is saying if username is equal to the database username and the password is equal to the database password, then return true. And so if the username was right but the password was wrong, this will be skipped over because both conditions need to be true with an and conditional operator for this entire statement to be true, or condition I should say to be true. And so that's what the double ampersand sign is for, and that's how that can be useful, because as you can see we really cleaned that code up, and now we can just now in 4 lines of code we just kind of did the same thing pretty much. And you also might have noticed I left out the curly braces here with the else statement, and that's also okay as long as we only have one statement after the else. We could leave the curly braces out. It's kind of just a shorthand, and we could have left it out for the if statement also, but I usually don't do that just because if I want to go back later and add another statement, maybe now just something else, just my name equals Bob. Maybe if I want to do this for some reason and then return it, then I would have to use the curly braces because it was more than one statement after our if statement. But in this case it's only one, so we could leave these out if we wanted to, and that's totally fine. So 4 lines of code just kind of is all we need for that. And again, the global keyword is going to give us access to variables outside our function. Without the global keyword, PHP would have no idea what we're talking about when we said DB name, DB pass. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. Thanks for watching. See you next time.